Doc Smith, the Lensman and Skylark series. Hi, I'm Gary Lovisi, and I'm going to talk a bit about one of my favorite and very neglected science fiction writers, the writer with probably Edmund Hamilton, who created space opera. His books, the Skylark Lensman series and others, were the templates for all the space operas to follow, and that includes Star Wars, Star Trek, the books by Jack Campbell, the Lost Fleet series, and many, many more. And anytime you have a science fiction mega series that involves clashing civilizations, interstellar warfare, galaxies, and on that kind of scale, that's Doc Smith. And he was a masterful science fiction writer. A lot of people say he wasn't such a great writer because he wasn't trying to write great literature. He was writing pulp adventure fiction, but it had an overall template behind it, which was fascinating, and especially in the Lensman series, which I'm going to get to. But first of all, he started out in the 20s. Edward Elmer Smith, PhD, he was a food engineer and a chemist. He was born in May 2nd, 1890, and passed away on August 31st, 1965. And like I say, he was the father of space opera. In the 20s, he wrote the Skylark series. And that's about, it's an interesting series because it's kind of like pre-Heinlein. It's by the seat of your pants science. Scientists doing science, but they were doing it almost in their garage. And you know, like creating fantastic experiments and amazing devices that could travel through time and space. They were doing this in their homes, in their garages, in their basements, in these stories in the beginning when they started out. Dr. Richard Seaton and his fellows were working on different experiments, and there was another fellow with him that was a friend and a kind of a competitor, Mark Duquesne. And Seaton was able to invent a way to travel to different planets. And the Skylark Adventures, the 4 books in that series, have him and his fellow friends traveling to different planets and having incredible space adventures. It's kind of funny, I think, when people look at the Skylark series and they say, oh, it's so naive. He was creating things in his basement, or he's creating these experiments in his garage. But if you look at, you know, like recent history, didn't Steve Jobs create Apple in his garage? And didn't some of the tech wizardry that we take for granted now, iPhones and the personal computer and all of that, weren't they started by genius researchers and people in their homes, in their basement, in their garage? So what Doc Smith was saying really was actually possible. It actually happened in a kind of a different way. The stories of the Skylark books, there's 4 of them, and I'm just going to show you them. These are early Pyramid editions. They have great, great cover art. This is by Jack Gaughan, The Skylark of Space. That's the first book in the series. Skylark 3 is the second book. Skylark of Valeron is the third book. These both have Emsh covers. And Skylark Duquesne is the 4th book with the Jack Gaughan cover. These are the 4 books in the Skylark series. And it's interesting because the relationship between Duquesne and Seaton, they're rivals, they're competitors, they're sometimes friends, although Mark Duquesne gets the nickname Blackie because he's like a bad guy. And he tends to be on the black side of things, the dark side of things, a bad guy. But sometimes he helps Seaton, and sometimes he doesn't, because he does things that invoke his own self-interest. Sometimes his self-interest is helping Richard Seaton and his friends, and sometimes it's not. So he's like a kind of a rogue character that in the series and the books, you never know kind of what he's going to do. He's a bad guy, but sometimes he does good, and then when you think he's doing good, he starts doing bad stuff. So it's interesting. Great series of books. This is a German edition. I just figured I'd throw it in there. Tiny book. Then after the Skylark series in 1930s and 40s, he created the Lensman series. The Lensman series is just really amazing. I mean, this is where Star Wars, Star Trek, and everything comes from. It's the battle of human civilization against our enemies. And the enemies are other aliens or people, could be human beings that are traitors, that want to enslave humanity. And in the first book in the series, of course I have them in the wrong order. Okay. The first book is Triplanetary, and it takes place maybe 100 years in the future. The Triplanetary Earth League is a police force that's policing the planets, and there's pirates in the space pirates in the solar system. This pretty much takes place in the solar system at this point, but it also starts earlier. It starts back in Roman times and in pre-human times, because what happens, the overarching philosophy of the series is that there's two great races of beings, the Adorians and the Arisians. The Adorians seek, they're both from outside the galaxy, and the Adorians seek to enslave mankind and all other races and all other planets. And the Arisians are kind of like the race in Star Trek that helped the Federation. Can't remember the name of them, but they seek to help humanity, and they want it to advance. They want it to advance the advancement of civilization and freedom. So you have these unbelievable space battles. There's you have the great heroes and villains, and they eventually the Arisians give a gift to the humans and to Kimball Kennison. Kimball Kennison is the kind of the hero, although there's many others that becomes predominant in the Lensman series. And he's given the lens, which is an alien kind of device that he wears on his, sort of like a kind of an interstellar police badge that cannot be duplicated or counterfeited. So it denotes that person that wears the lens as being, this kind of basically a policeman, and he can range far through the galaxy. He can and to doing his job to fight the enemies of civilization. And these enemies, there's a lot of them, and they're like very well organized. There's space pirates, there's alien races, and he also meets aliens on other planets, like on Rigel and other planets, very, very alien creatures that are good, and they become Lensmen also. So the first book, Triplanetary, kind of lays the background for that, and the Triplanetary League. And then you have, the second book is First Lensman. And First Lensman is when Kimball Kennison gets the lens, and he begins his battle against the Adorians. But before that, he's fighting the Boscone pirates. He's fighting the I can't read. The Plorians, which are a very alien species on another planet. and other various, that they're all of these different planets are run by beings that are controlled by the evil Adorians. And basically the Adorians are the prime movers in all of that's bad. And the Arisians are trying to help civilization. And they're the ones that gave Kennison the lens to help fight the evil Adorians. The lens also helps the lensmen have great psychic powers. They can read minds, they can control minds, and they can fight in mental powers against other aliens that have far great mental powers also. I just wanted the cover art on this one is Jack Gaughan. The cover art on here is also Jack Gaughan. This is the first and second book. The third book in the series is Jack Gaughan, Galactic Patrol. That's one of my favorite books. That is one of the greatest books in the Lensman series. It is non-stop space battle from beginning to end. Super mile-long starships, battleships in space, super dreadnoughts fighting against all kinds of enemy spacecraft in battles that rage throughout the galaxy. It's just unbelievable, great stuff. And Kimball Kennison is the hero, and they destroy the pirates of Boscone, run by this guy named Helmuth, and Kennison meets a wife, a woman that he's going to marry, and then he becomes promoted. He becomes the Gray Lensman, which is basically a lensman that's no longer part of the lensman group, because there's various lensmen that operate throughout the galaxy, and they're doing various duties against enforcement of laws and civilization. The Gray Lensman, basically, he's on his own. He does whatever he wants to do, and he does it. And he has special powers because of the lens, and the Arisians have trained him. So he becomes going after. He realizes that when they fought the pirates, the black pirates of Boscone, and they defeated Helmuth, the civilization thought, okay, so now we've ended this piracy and this outlawry in the galaxy, and now things will be peaceful. They don't realize that there's another level of evil, of enemies, that's even greater. And he, because he's a Gray Lensman, he can see that, and he goes after them. And it's just a great story, great, incredible science fiction. And the next book is Second Stage Lensman, again with the Jack Gaughan cover. All these covers have a certain charm, they have a certain intensity, and I just love them. I mean, the artwork is great. These are 60s editions, 1960s editions of 1930s and 40s, books that were written in the 30s and 40s. And then there's the last one in the series, again by Jack Gaughan, is Children of the Lens, where Kimball Kennison and his wife Clarissa McDougall have children, and the children have inherited the lens powers and more powers, so they're like super. They have super ESP and mind reading abilities and things to fight the Adorians, and they're on that level, and it's just great. And then the last one is kind of it's in the series of the Lensman, but it's not really. I don't consider it exactly it's Masters of the Vortex, another Jack Gaughan cover. This doesn't stand up to these six. These six are magnificent. So what happened was, of course, Smith passed away, and people just loved these books, and
the publishers loved people buying these books,
publishing them. I knew Verna Smith Trestrail, who was Doc Smith's daughter. I had corresponded with her over many years. I actually met her through Frederick Pohl, and he gave me her address. She says, "Would you like to meet? Would you like to, correspond with Doc's daughter?" And I says, "Absolutely." And she was such a wonderful lady, and she was in her 60s at the time, and just a wonderful woman, and always promoting her father's work, and we have many nice letters that we wrote back and forth to each other, which I cannot find, of course, because otherwise I would share them with you. But maybe someday if I find them, I will.
Do you remember what she said?
She just told me how her father loved creating the series. He kind of believed in what he was writing. He was very much for the background of the Lensman series, of pro-civilization, against the evil of tyranny and the loss of freedom. He wanted freedom, and Kimball Kennison was his ultimate kind of warrior hero, who was a just and decent man, who was very talented, very powerful, and was seeking to do good. And then they were really, she was really a sweet lady. There were other people that were very good friends of Doc Smith, like David Kyle was a contemporary of his, and he had the permission to write 4 books in the new Lensman series. And these were published in the 80s, I believe. And there's Lensman from Rigel is one of them, and the Dragon Lensman. This is Warsaw. Warsaw is the dragon. This is Tregency. And there were 2 other books in the series that I do not have because I lost them in Hurricane Sandy. But these are the 2 that I have left. And so David Kyle wrote these in the 80s based on Doc Smith's Lensman universe. And what he did was feature the other Lensmen that were non-human in the series. And they continued to battle otherworldly evil creatures, and fought, for civilization in the universe. Another book that I don't really know too much about is New Lensman by William B. Ellern. This is a British orbit book from 1976. It's pretty scarce. It's a sequel to the Lensman series. I don't know too much about that book. This one I have not read. I've read all the others, and I remember them vividly, and I love them. It's just I would have to think about what happened in all of the books, but all I just have is a very good feeling about them. It's like, like when you see the book and you go like, oh, that was great, that was great. A few other just quick other books that he wrote. Subspace Explorers, Masters of Space, this is a British edition, and one more British edition, The Best of E.E. Doc Smith. Let me see what I left out.
I'll make it quick, we're getting a low battery.
Yeah. Doc Smith is somebody who should be remembered, and he should be read. His books are terrific, and they are the basis of all the great science fiction space opera that we all love today, whether it's in movies, comic books, or in other novels. So you better pick up a Lensman's book or a Skylark book, and I know you will totally enjoy it. And thanks for looking at this video. I hope it does Doc Smith justice. I know it doesn't because I can't, but I did want to say this and get it out, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for looking.